Next up, we are going to look at the lighting, although strictly speaking, there isn't any actual real lights in the scene or real illumination in the scene. Instead, the whole look is based on reflections and the luminance channels of our materials. So that's what we're going to look at a bit later, but we still need to set up some lights which are used for atmosphere effects that you see this blue fog and then these other spots of orange fog between the buildings. By default, this is what the render looks like. I'm gonna make that a bit larger, and let's go to our picture viewer or the render settings. Set this to 1920 by 1080 because I am going to be sending some pictures to the picture viewer just to see where we are at each stage. So just to start with, let's send the scene without any changes. I will preview this at 150%. Right now we have the default light, that's why we can see anything, but I want to neutralize that. So bring in a new light and set the intensity to 0. And this is now going to be my starting point. I can see gaps through the building, which is the floor underneath. We don't have one. So let's insert a plane, go to the size and just add a couple of zeros to make sure it covers the whole scene. I am also going to insert a camera so I can save this particular position I am looking at. So this first light we're going to bring in is going to be blue. That's the color of our fog. And the saturation will be about 70%. Then go to visible light and turn it to visible. And in the visibility tab, we're going to set the outer distance to be much higher than this. Right now it's just about here. If I make it larger in the viewport though, and do a quick render, the actual size I went with for the final project was 20,000. So really large fog layer. But then I turned down the height. So relative scale, put the height, which is this Y value, to about 17.5%. That seemed to work quite well. It just ends up going up to somewhere above the CT, like this. Let's look through our camera and do another quick render. So it is working, but we have some actual illumination from this light that we want to turn off. So just go to the light and then no illumination. So we can't see anything in this preview. Let's go to maybe quick shading with lines, so we at least have some kind of a preview. But now with that fog at a lower level and the illumination turned off, we have something like this. This will all start to look a bit better when we start setting up the actual materials, but it's useful to actually see just what the illumination is doing before we get to all of that stuff as well. Anyway, there is some other patches of fog in this scene, and the way they were made was by once again getting some lights. Let's go to growth shading this time. We want to see the effects of these lights. The color is going to be 17 degrees orange with the saturation at 70 once again. And in the general section, let's enable visible light with the following settings. So the outer distance is going to be 1000. We need a copy of this. And this other light is going to be blue, maybe about 200 degrees. And these two are going to be thrown into a cloner. The spacing between them is going to be at 1200. We want them to slot in between each group of 4 buildings. So if I go and type in 1200 in both X and Z, let's see, with a 2x2 grid that lines up between these first 4 building sets. So we need to make enough to go all the way to the edge. So 10 in either direction should line up exactly like how we want. And if I were to render this out, you'll see a lot of fog patches and also a lot of illumination. So once again, we don't want illumination from these lights, so turn it off. We just want them for their fog effects. I just worked out that maybe if I want to see what the buildings are, I should make a material and add a reflection layer to it. Just apply it to their buildings. We can at least see vaguely where the buildings are supposed to be. That's a better preview than just all blackness, I guess. There are too many of these lights, however, so let's create a couple of null objects and place them into the cloner separating these 2 lights. So now we are only going to get a light every other set of clones. However, in this iterate mode, we still get a regular pattern. So let's go and change that to random. And if I render this out now, it's gonna look a bit less uniform. These lights, I think, were stronger, so the intensity is gonna be 200. And in the visibility tab, we're gonna multiply the brightness to 200 also. I could have just typed in 400% here. It would have achieved the same as leaving the regular luminance at 100%. So I don't know what's going on here. I must have knocked the wrong switch. There should be no illumination from these lights. But okay, it's because our reflection has some blurriness to it. Let's turn that off once again. The original blue light was turned off by accident. Let's bring that back. And this is the combined look. So we want to delete these 2 examples. And we've gone from this to this now. But that's it for the basic lighting setup. I know it's a bit awkward working with a completely black viewport. So maybe what we can do is bringing a light above or something and disable that light in the renderer, but it is active in the viewport for preview purposes. Okay. Anyway, in the next lesson, we are going to create the materials which are going to help to bring this whole look together.